Hey guys, my name is Nathan. Welcome to Hale. If you guys are new to my channel, thank you for clicking on this video. I post videos about movies, basically all topics, whether it's the Criterion Collection, black and white movies, Disney movies, modern movies, video essays, all that fun stuff. So if you like any of that stuff, then definitely hit that subscribe button. In this video, it will be the finale, the wrap up to my Decade in Review series. If you weren't aware, I spent the past year reviewing every year from the past decade. I talked about my top 10 from each year, and I gave a sentence describing the year. If you're interested in that, there will be a card up here that you can click on to watch that series. But this is the finale where I take all those movies that I watched this past decade and I put it into one list and choose a top 10 of all those movies I've seen. But before I get started on the top 10, I just kind of want to talk about a few stats from the decade. So if you remember, at the end of every year, I put an average rating. I took all the ratings I gave to the movies and then I took an average of that, and that was my rating for the year. I thought it'd be cool to kind of show what year had the best rating, what year had the worst rating. So as far as best ratings go, 2013 actually won for a 7.35 out of 10, but 2010 was very close behind with a 7.32 out of 10, and 2019 was third place with a 7.26 out of 10. The worst year was 2011 with a 6.76 out of 10. And so this list is going to be based on my experiences with these movies over the past decade. So for an example, you might see a movie on this list that is ranked higher than a movie that's on my all-time list. And that's simply because this past decade, I might have had a special memory with that movie, or there's a specific reason I wanted it to be in the top 10 list. And so if you see differences in rankings within my videos, that's why. This is solely based on my experience with this movie over this past decade, what it meant to me, what memories I have associated with it, all that fun stuff. So with that being said, let's go over the honorable mentions. I'll just be doing 5 honorable mentions. I could easily talk about 10 more, but just to keep it concise. Number 15, Endgame. 14, 10, Cloverfield Lane. 13, Guardians of the Galaxy. 12, Boyhood. And 11, Dunkirk. Starting off the top 10 list at number 10, I have X-Men Days of Future Past. The reason I wanted this to make the top 10 was because this was the first movie in my life that I actually saw 3 times in the movie theater. I really enjoyed it every single time. In fact, one of the times I saw it was the premiere, another time was with my mom, and the other time was filming the 24-hour movie marathon, which I actually filmed on a different YouTube channel. My friends and I incorporated a movie theater release in our 24-hour marathon. Days of Future Past was out at the time, and so we decided to rewatch that one. I love X-Men Days of Future Past, which is interesting because I'm not the biggest fan of the X-Men movies to begin with. I like some of them. I thoroughly dislike some other ones. But Days of Future Past is just amazing to me. I think it is so great how they were able to incorporate the original cast and the newer cast into one movie and create a storyline that also fits that. Because you would think that trying to crowd a movie with the original cast and the new cast could be very messy and could be very risky, but they end up making it a movie where it completely makes sense. You know, Wolverine has to go back in time to stop something from happening, to change the current future that they live in. It totally makes sense, and it's cool to just see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine associate with the young Professor X and the young Magneto, the young Mystique. All around, it is a great movie, and I also love seeing Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique as the main character in this one because I thought that was a really strong point. The plot is great. I love the music to it as well. I love the emotion to this one also, and the ending of the movie, they tie up so many loose ends from previous movies, and they fix so many problems in the X-Men movies up to that point that was another reason I was just very impressed that they were able to accomplish something that great. This is also a fun movie for me because I actually worked at the movie theater when this movie came out in high school, and so I picked up a poster, a collectible cup from the movie viewing, and it's just a great memory I have. At number 9, I have Toy Story 3, which is the first animated movie on the list. To me, Toy Story 3 is the real conclusion to the Toy Story story. I don't like thinking that Toy Story 4 happened just because of how perfect the finale was in Toy Story 3. This is arguably the greatest movie ending of all time, at least the greatest trilogy ending, or at least one of them. I mean, come on, it's such a great conclusion to these toys' story, and I love what they did with Andy going off to college. They even got the same voice actor of the original Toy Story 1 and 2 to come back to play college Andy, and I thought that was really cool of them. And then the story of them all sticking together and no leaving any toys behind was so heartfelt, and that's something that to me Toy Story 4 just threw away. This whole motto they had of leave no toy behind. It's almost as if they forgot it because that's exactly what Toy Story 4 does. I just like believing that Toy Story 3 is the finale. I mean, I don't hate Toy Story 4, but I love Toy Story 3 enough to kind of mask Toy Story 4 in my eyes. Oddly enough, I have another animated movie on the list. Number 8 goes to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I keep going back to the movie, and every time I rewatch it, it almost gets better somehow. It's one of those movies that on a rewatch, I love it even more each time. I'm still to this day amazed by the in-depth work that went into the animation of this movie. It's literally a comic book movie put to screen. With the way that they edit it and animate it, it's all just such a cool experience. One that I've never really experienced in a superhero movie before. And then also, I've mentioned this millions of times in other videos, but Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. And so you guys can just imagine how pleased I was to see a movie starring a bunch of Spider-Mans together. It was great, and Miles Morales is such a lovable character as well. I'm so glad that we've been introduced to him, and I'm so excited for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of cheat for this next one. At number 7, I have the Planet of the Apes trilogy. Now, the reason I have them tied is because when I was looking at this video, I literally had War for the Planet of the Apes in the top 10, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and Rise of the Planet of the Apes in the honorable mention 11 through 15 section. I felt that it would be better to just group them all together as one entry to show that I love these movies so much. And then I can also give room for other movies to make the top 10 with the 5 honorable mentions. And so that's the reason I'm showing a tie for this, because all of them did come out in the past decade and all of them did mean a lot to me. I loved these movies so much. I love the motion capture, the visual effects, the heart to the stories, and also the character development. Man, the character development is on its own level for praise. I mean, you start off with this baby monkey, Caesar, and you go through basically his whole entire life, and you see how he develops as a character, and you feel for him from the moment you meet him in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And by the time you're in War for the Planet of the Apes, you absolutely adore him and his whole family of monkeys. It is such a powerful movie. Every movie in the entry is very powerful in its own reason. I love something specific about each of these movies that are different from the other movies. For an example, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I love that relationship that Caesar and Will form, James Franco's character. I love the relationship they form, and I also love the whole story of Caesar finding out that he's better than just an average ape. You know, he's smarter than the average ape. He has the ability to be his own person, and he shouldn't be segregated because he's an ape. And I love seeing him escape from the monkey sanctuary. But also the score is unbeatable. It's a score that they don't use again in the later entries of the trilogy, but I absolutely love the score in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes I love because Koba is put at the front as the villain, and I think he was such a menacing villain. It was such a good match for Caesar because originally he was Caesar's friend, and so to see them turn against each other was just great movie going right there. And also I liked the new setting of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. It's very overcast the entire movie. You're in a rainy forest, which is so beautiful, and also it's several years after Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and so it just is kind of a cool follow-up several years later. And then War for the Planet of the Apes, you really get to see Caesar's psychological war with himself, with his choices, the choices that others are making for him. It just adds to the character development of this character, Caesar, that we've been following for the past few years. Plus, there are so many beautiful shots in these movies, ones that like aren't necessarily needed, but since we have them, they're beautiful and I love them. I actually created a whole entire video essay about why I love this trilogy, and so if you want to check that out, there'll be a card somewhere in this frame to check that out. At number 6, I have The Social Network. This is a movie kind of like Spider-Verse where every time I watch it, I love it even more than the last time I watched it. It's something that I'm glued to the screen, and it's such a simple plot, but it invests me enough where I'm glued to the screen for the entire 2-hour runtime. I love the performances from Jesse Eisenberg and Andrew Garfield. I still to this day think that Andrew Garfield was seriously snubbed of an Oscar nomination. He should have been nominated, no doubt in my mind. I think is one of the best performances I've ever seen. Another thing I love about Social Network is the dialogue written by Aaron Sorkin. I know that he's been praised so many times. I don't think I have anything to add to the table of praise for Aaron Sorkin, but I do want to say that I love the dialogue. And I love the score for this movie, such a beautiful score. And also, I think I relate to it a little bit more because I'm in college right now, and I'm not making a social media site that's worth billions of dollars necessarily, but I'm in that college scene, and it makes me like the movie especially right now. Number 5 goes to Parasite, which literally came out last year, but it has been a movie that I've seen 3 times, and every time I've watched it, I have just been massively impressed. It's one of those feelings you get where when you're watching a movie, you think to yourself, this isn't a regular movie. This is something else. This is something more than a regular movie. This is a masterpiece. It's the same feeling I had when I first watched The Godfather for the first time. It just doesn't feel like your average movie. It feels like a new tier of movie going. That's how I feel about Parasite, and every time I watch it again, I love it even more. Let me just say, it deserves all the praise that it has gotten. I'm so glad that it won Best Picture. Yeah, Parasite's a masterpiece. Number 4 is an interesting pick because I actually didn't even see this movie in the theaters. It came out in 2016 at a time when I was serving a mission for my church, and so I actually saw it for the first time in 2017 towards the end of the year. And that movie is La La Land. Despite not being able to see it in theaters, after watching La La Land, I instantly understood why everyone loved the movie. It is an absolutely beautiful movie about following your dreams. I absolutely love the motto, "Here's to the fools who dream." Just kind of shouting out all those people who have those dreams and who want to reach them. It's recognizing them, and that's something that I really like about this movie, which is funny because I'm not even majoring in like a fine arts career, like a movie career or theater career, anything like that. I'm majoring in healthcare administration, which has nothing to do with movies, but yet this movie still speaks to me, a moviegoer who loves movies, and I'm still inspired by that message of here's to the fools who dream. I love it. And then at number 3, I have Interstellar. Now, the reason this movie is special to me is because it was actually the first IMAX movie I ever saw, and it's the only IMAX movie I've ever seen, actually. And that's not the biggest reason it's special to me, but I just kind of wanted to throw that in there. This movie's special to me because it introduced me to not only one of my favorite movie scores of all time, but one of my favorite performances of all time from Matthew McConaughey as Cooper, as well as one of my favorite Christopher Nolan movies of all time. I love Interstellar, and it's a movie that I've seen so many times that I basically have it memorized. I listen to the score, I hum the score sometimes when I'm just doing daily activities. If I have to do something intense, I'll start humming the score, the soundtrack that's called the docking scene. I'll start humming the docking scene score because I'm doing something really intense and that scene's really intense. It sounds super cheesy, but also it's a great movie about love and what relationships really mean. It takes a scientific way of looking at love, and it goes with that. And so the plot is pretty crazy, but it hasn't bothered me in the 6 years that it's been since it was released, and so I don't think it's going to bother me at this point. And although Interstellar is one of my favorite Christopher Nolan movies, my favorite has to be Inception, which comes in at number 2 of the decade for me. Inception is a movie that every time I watch it, I feel like I pick up on something new. It is such a complex story, and the fact that it was thought up is genius within itself. Now, I know that Christopher Nolan took a lot of inspirations from other movies. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the movies that he took inspiration from. I know of them and they're on my watch list. I just haven't seen them. And so all I can talk about is Inception. But I just love Inception and the cinematography and just the whole grand scope of it. It is such a ambitious project, and it didn't fail in the slightest. You've got a star-studded cast, all of them can act, and then you've got this amazing story that's complex, and it's a story that's still being talked about to this day. People look back at it and they still have questions that are unanswered. I thought that I understood Inception, and then I took a class in college where we talked about Inception, and like 5 more questions were opened up. And so I'm still confused by it. There are still things I have unanswered, but someday maybe I'll understand it. Anyways, for now, it's still a movie that I love revisiting and just embracing and just getting lost in for the 2.5 hour runtime. I love it. I have spent over a year talking about my favorite movies of each year of the past decade. We are at that time where I reveal what my favorite movie was of the entire decade. It was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And notice I didn't say part 1 or part 2. It's both parts. And I know that's probably cheating also, but the thing is, come on, it's basically one movie. Like, come on, it's basically one movie. Part 1 gave us an excellent introduction to the finale, but it also gave us a lot of character development, and you guys know me. I love this movie. It's my favorite Harry Potter movie, but part 2 is closely behind because it is an epic finale, and also it meant so much to me, and that's why it deserves this number 1 spot of the decade. I grew up watching Harry Potter movies. I saw every movie in the theater growing up, and so to be able to watch Deathly Hallows Part 2 in the theater and experience the finale was both sad and rewarding and beautiful, honestly. I would be lying if I said that I haven't looked up the 19 Years Later prologue on YouTube several times. Sometimes I'll just watch that clip and remind myself how amazing that first experience was of seeing that on the big screen. And for someone who read the books, I'm also very in love with the whole story of Harry Potter. I love the books and the movies. It's really just kind of a no-brainer that this is my number one because of how much I love them and because of how much they mean to me. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, favorite movie of the past decade. We made it. Those were my top 10 movies of the past decade. Thank you for sticking with me and thank you for watching this video and this series. If you haven't seen the series, make sure to check it out to get a more in-depth view of my rankings for every year of the past decade. But for now, those are my top 10 picks. What are yours? I want to hear them. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. The finale, epic finale, the finale,